The ball, Jimenez! Goal!
He claims it. Distribution, brilliant. Landon Donovan, a fix on here for the USA. Can they do it here? Cross, and Dempsey's denied again. And Donovan scored! Oh, can you believe this? Go, USA! Certainly through! Oh, it's incredible!
All right, everybody, welcome to the International Players Anthem Soccer Podcast, the absolute most impressive podcast on the planet. With me, as always, he's taking dives in the box. It's Mr. Stephen Whiting.
Yeah, nutmegging, folks. I'm just, maybe you should have said kicking guys in the box. That could have had a dual meaning. I could be kicking people in the nuts. I could be doing it in the box. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, Ramon. Let's just get into it.
Yes, we say this every week because it's a very wide lane that we drive in, but
hey, our tax dollars pay for that wide lane. Let me just throw that out there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely no doubt about it. Stephen, how has your week treated you?
My week has been fairly laid back. I'm about to start a second job up doing cameraman stuff, but I think I've been. I'll tell you what. I had a Newcastle around 4 o'clock this afternoon. That was probably the highlight of my week.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. I also had a week just full of great highlights. I strained my calf in a friendly, playing some touch football in the park, and it's been a nagging injury all week. And but I'm playing hurt today. I'm doing it for the.
I hope
the
you had a
5 to 10
banana.
people that listen. Yeah, man. You got to rice it. You got to rest. You got to ice. You got to compression, heat. There's a process, and back to my weekend warrior shape in no time. A lot of stuff happening this week that we'll get to, but a lot of stuff happening next week. Is folks, on Wednesday, March 5th, that is a FIFA sanctioned friendly day. So we're gonna get a chance to take a first really good first look at all of a lot of international sides playing, and they get a look at what we got brewing and what they have brewing, and Steven, some games to look forward to this weekend.
Yeah, we got some really big international matchups. You may only get like a half to really look at maybe some good stuff. I haven't looked at all of the national call-ups for each team, and we'll get to what U.S. and Mexico is doing in a minute, but a chance to see some heavyweight matchups before we get to the World Cup. Keep in mind these are really just scrimmages. You're probably not going to see Cristiano Ronaldo battling, Italy's best defenders or whoever they're playing. But so some of the bigger matchups: France, Netherlands. You've got Italy, Spain. You've got Australia, Ecuador. You've got Chile and Germany. That's a big one. The Chile-Germany one is one I think a lot of people have circled. Certainly, and we've made this point, Ramon, you've made this point about Mexico, how they played such a tough schedule leading up to the last World Cup in 2010 and didn't exactly do them any favors. But it's a way to see some of the intercontinental teams play against each other and kind of give you an idea of what we're going to see come this summer. But, don't want to put the cart before the horse. We'll have something up on that here at the beginning of next week, and we're really going to focus on what these games mean to the teams in our backyard, and that's the United States and Mexico, Ramon.
Yeah, I think both teams just kind of with different philosophies, but one common thread, and that's that both coaches, Miguel Herrera of Mexico and Jurgen Klinsmann of the United States, are they're calling up all of the European guys they can and giving them a really hard look to see who's going to be a part of things going forward. I guess we'll start with Mexico since I'm talking currently. We got the call-ups. We got a pretty good handle on who's going to start. The big thing to keep in mind with Mexico is it's an embarrassment of B-plus talent. So you have guys that are Europe-based like Andres Guardado and Giovanni Dos Santos who should be starters, but they're not playing up to potential, and people are just still not exactly, like, they haven't necessarily been forgiven by the populace at large for how terrible they were during qualifying, and they were just these kind of glass-eyed European-based dudes that would fly in on $1 million jets and not really do a whole heck of a lot. And then you got the domestic league guys that are playing well and playing together, and I think, Steve, what you and I were talking about before we came on is just let's run this kind of position by position, and afterward we'll sort of get into who we think our starting 11 should be if the World Cup were tomorrow. At keeper, we're pretty sure that France-based keeper Guillermo Ochoa is going to start. I mean, the guy has the best reflexes and he's the quickest. He should have been the guy in the last World Cup, but the knock on him is that he's missed some big saves, and managers just don't seem to trust him with the keys to their team. And so I still kind of don't think he's going to be the guy, but he's going to have a huge opportunity on Wednesday to prove that he belongs at the top of the list. The problem is that the other two dudes in line, you got Jesus Corona, who is the Cruz Azul keeper, and Cruz Azul is the pride and joy of the Liga MX currently. He's the guy that won the Gold Cup. He's the sort of most sure-footed, iconic guy. He's not a world-class guy, but he's just the kind of guy that everybody trusts. And
Yeah,
he's the
Ramon,
kind of guy
I would look at him as a safe bet versus somebody with a high ceiling. Is probably a better way to describe that.
yeah.
You know what you're going to get in
And
Corona, whereas Ochoa seems to be much more like Mario Balotelli-esque. Like you just don't know where his head's going to be at.
exactly. He had some doping allegations. He's had so many opportunities over the last 4 or 5 years to just really be the guy. He's had Allstate commercial. It was really awkward during the last World Cup. He had the Allstate commercial. But I think he still has the Allstate commercial on like Spanish language television. But he wasn't starting. Conejo Perez was starting because again, he was the trusted guy. So I think you're going to see Ochoa start on Wednesday. Corona will certainly be there. And then the last battle goes, this becomes a who makes the squad kind of thing. Is it going to be Moises Munoz, who's the starting keeper at America, or is it going to be Talavera, who's a better prospect? So who do you basically want on the team? And these are two guys that realistically won't play during the 4 or 5 games that Mexico plays in the World Cup. So it's just a question of who do you want there, who do you trust more, and because of that, I think you're going to see Talavera, even though he's a more talented guy, not get down to Brazil. I think you're going to see Moises Munoz, who is going to be there for the Nigeria game. I think the same goalies that are getting called for the Nigeria game are going to be the guys that are called down when it comes down to it again. Ochoa, Corona, Talavera. If we go to defense, Mexico, it has a very kind of like fluid, unique, kind of distinctly Latin American 3-5-2 formation. Or I'm sorry, 5-3-2 formation. So you're gonna see basically 5 defenders with dudes playing on the wings, and a lot of attacking. So the only guy that we know is going to be there is Rafa Marquez. Rafa Marquez absolutely going to be there. But then again, that's a tough position. Defense is a tough position for the Mexicans because you got guys like Diego Reyes who play for Porto, albeit Porto's B team are based in Europe. Really, really talented dudes. You got guys like Hector Moreno who should absolutely be there, except that he got hurt in October and hasn't really been around. You got a guy like Paul Aguilar who has been playing fantastic and plays in that America system, and so he's sort of a guy that Miguel Herrera leans on, or at least did lean on when they were playing in Liga MX. And then you got a guy like Andres Guardado who lit it up for Mexico during the 2011 Gold Cup, and who was just the kind of guy that he's been on the team since 2006. He's a European-based guy. He should be in the prime of his career. He's been in the system forever, but he has fallen completely out of favor. Now, Guardado has been called up into the Nigeria game. He will surely start because he's based out of Europe. But again, he's all of a sudden buried on the depth chart. So I think you're going to see Diego Reyes start. I think you're going to see Moreno start, Rafa start. You're going to see Guardado start for sure, and then you're going to see Paul Aguilar start. But a guy that probably will be there when it's all said and done, starting on the field, is Massa Rodriguez, who was the captain during the Confederations Cup, who's kind of a hothead. But I think if Massa and Rafa can play, I think that there's a lot of defensive talent, I think, for Mexico. When we look at the midfield, it's going to be, that's Mexico's big weakness. Their holding mids just aren't impressive. I mean, right now it's like Gallito Vázquez and Juan Carlos Medina just sort of like doing the job because, again, they do that in Liga MX and they're comfortable with the system. But you got a guy like Hector Herrera who plays for Porto, that team that came back and had a dramatic 3-3 tie today in the Europa League. Like you just can't leave Hector Herrera out. You got Carlos Peña. He's our man crush,
Jungle Cat.
The Jungle Cat, exactly. And he's coming on really strong. And then you got a guy like Javier Aquino who plays for Villarreal in Spain. that we just haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of under Herrera. You got guys like, I mean, and this is a reach, but right now the best, most informed, talented dude is Marco Fabian, who's just lighting up Liga MX with Cruz Azul. He's had just these 2 to 3 fantastic weeks. He was part of the gold medal team. Um, we just don't know if he's the guy that you want to take down there. And again, it's going to come down to experience versus kind of ushering in the new age. Um, so just a lot of who's going to be there. Because again, that we're talking about 3 midfields that go in the starting lineup, and we're not really sure who has chemistry with who. And then forward, that's probably Mexico's strongest position in terms of talent, in terms of informed strikers, and really it's going to come down to you got guys like Oribe Peralta, who is the reason Mexico is going to be in Brazil. You got Giovanni Dos Santos. You got Javier Chicharito Hernandez, Alan Pulido, who plays down for Tigres and is just really, really coming on. He scored quite a bit. Stephen, when you and I saw Mexico South Korea and San Antonio, hat trick. You got Raul Jimenez, who carried Mexico against Panama down at the Azteca, and basically Pulido and Jimenez for a long time they're the same age. They've Raul Jimenez took Pulido's spot on that gold medal team. The two of them have like gone back and forth. One of those dudes is going to be out unless Peralta, Chicharito, or Dos Santos gets hurt. But that's 5 dudes. You're going to take 4, and what 2 guys do you start? And it's going to be, I think, for me, a question of who's going to be in form. So we threw out a lot of guys, Steven. I think we'll save our starting 11 respected for the end. But I want to get your take on what Jurgen Klinsmann is doing in the United States.
Yeah, well, and real quick on the Mexico thing, I think if we've learned one thing, at least those of us who haven't been following Miguel Herrera, he's not afraid to make big decisions, controversial decisions. We saw that when he said no European guys allowed for the New Zealand playoff. So, like you just said, a lot of big questions in the Mexico setup. We'll get to breaking it down a little deeper here in a little bit, but keep in mind that there could be people that we haven't even seen yet go to Brazil. I think that's a fair assessment. On the American side, it's kind of an interesting setup here. I think the impression going into this was that this would be more of an A-team setup, kind of half MLS guys, half Europe guys. It doesn't look like Klinsmann has chosen to do that. It looks like he's said, listen, I took all these MLS guys down with me to Brazil. We had them in camp. We did the friendlies. I know, what I'm looking at in terms of the talent in the MLS and the stuff that, the guys that were on winter break with their respective teams in Europe, or in Latin America or what have you. Now he's using the opportunity here to scout the European-based players because this is a FIFA-sanctioned date, which means they're all not tied to their clubs. And he said, okay, let's go and get as many as we can. Only two players called up for this friendly that do not play in Europe, and that's Edgar Castillo from Tijuana in Mexico and Clint Dempsey in Seattle. Excuse me, Michael. The 3 players. Michael Bradley, who just moved to Toronto, is the 3rd player. So, very interesting thing here. He's called up again, and here's the really interesting thing. We've got Cody Cropper, who's an American backup keeper for Southampton. Brad Guzan, Aston Villa. Tim Howard, Everton. Cropper getting called in, but I don't think there's any way Ramondo gets replaced, just the 3rd goalkeeper, of course, playing for Real Salt Lake in the United States. Now, interesting, of note here, Klinsmann, who was a star in Germany for many years, coached them to the third place at the 2006 World Cup, has made no bones about his willingness to go after players who maybe didn't grow up in the United States but are qualified to play for them. Now, of the 24 players they've called in here, it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players. So a third of the team not born in the United States, but by virtue of having a dual passport, will be playing for us. Most notably will be Julian Green, a young forward for Bayern Munich. He's actually a winger. He's listed in the forwards, but is a winger for Bayern Munich. For the casual soccer fan, you may not have heard of him. He has been tabbed by many European pundits and by the club itself as the next big talent to come out of Bayern Munich's program, and reportedly was convinced to join the American side over Germany by having Klinsmann promise him a spot to the World Cup this year. So this brings up an interesting question, Ramon. Is this something is Klinsmann going to be promising a couple of these spots? We've got another guy named Gideon Zelalem, who was born in Germany. He's Ethiopian, lived in the United States until he was 15, and now plays for Arsenal, who's considering a couple different nationalities to choose from. Is that somebody that Klinsmann may try to go and offer spots to? I'm putting the cart before the horse a little bit here, but something to think about as we get into the breaking down of the rosters and who's going to Brazil. We may be only talking about maybe 19, 20 spots available versus 22, 23 spots, by virtue of Klinsmann maybe building for 2018 with some of the younger talent. I will get back into the lineup here. John Brooks from Hertha Berlin, Jeff Cameron, Stoke City, Edgar Castillo, Tijuana, who I mentioned earlier. Alfredo Morales plays for Ingolstadt. That's a second division German club. Oguchi Onyewu getting back in the fold. Haven't seen him in a while. Of course, he was a monster in the mid-2000s, and even in 2010 was brought along. Then Will Packwood, who is a baby at Birmingham City. He's only 21, I believe, maybe even younger than that. 20, excuse me. And then Danny Williams at Reading, and Breck Shea from Barnsley, Sasha Kleshchin from Anderlecht, longtime MLS player who's done very well at Anderlecht in the Belgian league. Jermaine Jones, Fabian Johnson, Mix Diskerud, Michael Bradley, Alejandro Bedoya, who played in the MLS for a while, now plays for Nantes in France. Moving up top, no Landon Donovan, but we do have Juan Agadello, a young talent who played for New England previously, now plays for Utrecht in the Netherlands. Then we've got Josie Altidore, Terrence Boyd, who is a name, if you don't know his name, soccer fans, you might want to write this one down. Terrence Boyd plays for Rapid Vienna in the Austrian Bundesliga. Scored boatloads of goals for them in the Europa League qualifying stage. They didn't make to the final 32, but certainly somebody you want to keep your eye on. Clint Dempsey, Julian Green, who I just mentioned from Bayern Munich, and Aaron Johansson from AZ Alkmaar is rounding out the team involved here. So one thing to keep in mind, though, as I drone on and on and on about this United States selection, this is not an A team. This is an opportunity for the European-based players to kind of stack up with what Klinsmann has seen over the last month or two with his MLS players, and I think we're going to have a very interesting selection when we get to the final team, Ramon.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I guess, having set the table, I think we should just sort of figure out who, right now, again, if the World Cup were tomorrow, who would we want as our starting 11? I'll go first. Keeper for me, it's Corona. He's the gold medalist. I trust him. That's the bottom line. He's got kind of the pull of the people. Ochoa can make more saves, but he takes less chances. The way a good buddy of mine, I want to give him a shout out, my buddy Connor, who played keeper on our high school soccer team, and is actually, I'm going to put him on blast here because he this week had coaching sensitivity training. He's a soccer coach here in Austin. He coaches the all girls academy, one of the all girls academy, and he got carded in a game, and so he's had to attend coaching sensitivity training.
That's
But
awesome.
basically, yeah, yeah. I mean, he doesn't think it's so awesome, but that's what he's doing tonight. He got carded because he did the indignant white guy thing where he's like, mad at the ref, and he's like, oh, "What's your name? What's your last name? What's your last name?" And then he got carded for basically questioning the ref's ability to officiate a game. Anyway, the way he put it, Ochoa has the reflexes. If it's a PK, sure, Ochoa's the guy. But what he does outside of the reflexes with the ball, makes a lot of errors, leaves himself open a lot, plays too aggressively sometimes, and I'd rather have Corona in there, knowing what we're up against in those first three games. I just trust him more. Defensively, I think the way you nod Miguel Herrera's system and that Club America team that won the 2013 title is you keep Paul Aguilar and Miguel Ayun. I think Lejeune and Aguilar, those Liga MX guys on the wings, were just so instrumental in creating plays and sending balls downfield and just I think they're not the most talented dudes, but Lejeune and Aguilar can create a lot of chances again on the wings. And then inside, you're basically three interior guys: Rafa Marquez, Hector Moreno, and for me, this is a vote of confidence. But I think Massa Rodriguez can turn it around and be the potential captain that we always thought we had. I think the notion of having Massa and Rafa like together, even though they're similar types of guys, slightly over the hill, not as quick as they need to be. I think sure Reyes would complement Rafa better. Diego Reyes, the guy from Porto, but I just, I trust Massa more. I trust Rafa more. I'd like to see them together. Um, and you put Hector Moreno back there, and again, this is a vote of confidence thing because he got hurt in the fall. I'd put Hector Moreno in there, and so again, you got Corona, and then your five defenders, Layun and Aguilar on the wings, Massa, Rodriguez, Rafa Marquez, and Hector Moreno there on the inside. And then in terms of like your midfielders, I think Hector Herrera has to be a part of things. He's just talented. He's a gold medalist. I think Carlos Pena is a guy that we're all really, really excited because we've seen him do so much for Leon, and he can create a lot of opportunities, and he has an opportunity to really shine. And then that third midfield position, I just have no idea. I'd love to see a guy like Marco Fabian continue to play out of his mind and sort of demand that roster spot and demand that starting position. I'd love to see Javier Aquino be his best self. I'd love to find a way to fit Gio dos Santos in there. For now, though, I think Andres Guardado with the career that he's had, I think he's going to have an opportunity to really become the guy and show why he was just such a fixture on that starting roster for the last 4 or 5 years. And then up top, it's Oribe Peralta, and then it just doesn't matter. I'd go with whomever complements him the best because Peralta's the guy that's scoring, and it's not pretty, and it's lanky sometimes, and it's ugly, but he's the guy that scores the goals. So Peralta, and we'll say Chicharito, but my heart wants to say a guy like Raul Jimenez.
Yeah, I go back and forth. The problem is that I don't know that I would set Mexico up in a 5-3-2, given the talent they have. I would almost do a 5-3-1-1, I guess, with Dos Santos behind Peralta. I just, I was sitting here scribbling it down. Again, Layun and Aguilar on the wings, the defensive wing backs is a must. That's just the way it has to be. I'm cool with Hector Moreno. Of course, I'm a huge man crush on Carlos Pena. I don't know if you want to slide Dos Santos into midfield and throw Chicharito in there with Peralta, or I don't know. You're almost better off leaving Dos Santos out of the team, throwing Chicharito up there, and maybe Fabian behind in that third midfield position. But like you said, it's kind of up in the air, and I just don't know. As far as the United States, and you're going to have to give me a second here, because I honestly have really no idea who I want in the back. I want Dipsy. I want Donovan up top. Excuse me. Like I said, I gotta write this down. The United States is such a crapshoot. You've got Altidore up top. That's happening. Period. We know that much. You're gonna have Dempsey up top. We know that much. You're gonna have Zusi and Donovan in midfield. A lot of people thinking that Donovan may play on the wing. Maybe. I don't know. I guess that makes the most sense since we kind of deploy two holding mids. One will obviously be Bradley. The other will, I guess, for consistency's sake, have to be Jermaine Jones, even though I'm not a fan of him. Then that leaves our backline pairing. I've been very happy with the Beasler and Gonzalez pairing. It's kind of the lesser of the evils. I'm also okay with Brad Evans, Jeff Cameron on I think it's the right side that he plays. And that leaves one more spot, the big magical spot. We've been playing Beasley. I just don't think that Beasley needs to be starting in the World Cup. He's obviously got the speed to some degree to play in the back, but his size I think is going to be a huge liability against bigger strikers in Germany and Portugal. And I don't know, Ramon. I just don't know.
Yeah, man. We got something to think about it. Um, it's tough. It's a lot of B plus talent, and and you don't have a lot of time to have a whole. And even just the notion of like relying on Donovan and Dempsey to just pencil those guys in no matter what. I have to question that because England's going through the same thing right now where they have a whole failed generation of guys in their 30s, and it's like, really, you're going to take Lampard, a guy that isn't even getting minutes at Chelsea, you're just going to take him down no matter what? Like, that's the key to getting out of a really tough group. And I mean, so I think the notion of just setting the young guys free is a healthy one because these tournaments are so scattered and they're so random, and as important as they are, the team comes together quickly, the games play out quickly, they're over with quickly. I just don't see the point in continuing to bring in guys where we know what they have, right? But I digress. I think it's time to take a little. I think the two of us should just jet set over to Europe because there's quite a bit to talk about. The Champions League is going down. We saw Galatasaray and Chelsea tie. We saw Real Madrid absolutely destroy Schalke 04. For the most part, no major upsets outside of Olympiacos housing Manchester United. But again, Manchester United at this point is more of a badge than it is a team. You got, Chicharito and Robin Van Persie feuding via Instagram, which strikes me as unbelievably petty. So the Champions League happened. Nothing particularly interesting. Except for, some things to note. First of all, Russia and what was the other one there? Oh, Russia and Turkey, right? We had fans, getting stabbed, fans getting hunted.
Yep.
It was a really intense week. You have reports that now Bayern Munich is Steven, you're gonna tell me what the story is. So Bayern Munich is opening an office in New York City.
Yes, that's correct. I think it's really interesting. We've talked a couple of times, especially after we had Rudy on, about just a general feeling. Certainly I feel this way, that Germany has the best league in the world. And Bayern Munich, I think, is trying to capitalize on that. They just signed a huge television deal that will be much more accessible here in the United States over the next couple of years. The German Bundesliga. And Bayern Munich is the best team in the world right now. They're runaway winners with the Bundesliga last year, won pretty much everything in Germany and the European Championship. And they've looked equally as menacing this year. Not quite as dominant in terms of statistically as they were last year, but just a scary team. And now coached by the architect of Barcelona's success over the last 5 or so years, and the guy that kind of coached up the tiki-taka style at Barcelona that has become prevalent in the Spanish national team's play. The story's pretty cut and dry. They're looking to expand their brand in the United States, and we'll leave it at that. It'll certainly open up a debate at some point about where is the best brand of soccer in the world, and where how do you make inroads in the United States? I mean, it's a debate that those that follow the MLS always have, and it's a debate that now I think the European soccer powers are realizing that there is a foothold here with the success of the Premier League and the TV ratings over the last couple of years, and the growth there. And so I think you'll see more of this. Certainly Bayern Munich, part of this has to do with them playing the MLS All-Stars in Portland in August. Last year the MLS All-Stars played Roma, and this year it'll be Bayern Munich. We've obviously got the Champions Tours that have gone on for the last decade or so, where you get Liverpool and Juventus and the various big clubs and stuff coming over. So I think this is just a sign of the times as far as that stuff is concerned, but something interesting to monitor.
One thing I want to go back to, because what made this week so interesting in the Champions League was the fact that, if there's one knock against the Champions League, it's that you look through a history of winners and you're going to see a lot of the same names coming up over and over again. And we had this round games in some very eastern places in Istanbul and in Russia. The Russia stuff is interesting because I was watching that Zenit St. Petersburg game, just going like, boy, Russia must have really not cared. This is like a half empty high school field. And actually, the reason why that was such an empty stadium was because the team basically banned half of the season ticket holders from going into the stadium because they are way too rowdy and they didn't want to deal with those crazy fans making them look bad on international television. So it was that kind of a really weird away week. Now, of course, those series return to the western part of Europe, and you're going to see games in Germany and games in London. So more or less the same stuff with the Champions League. Interesting if somewhat stale, because Real Madrid and Bayern Munich, we can at this point we can go ahead and just skip to the end. I mean, those are the two best teams.
I think that's where we want to see it go. I think that's a lot of obviously, it's not a bracket style format. We've brought that up before. It's teams are pulled out of a hat after every round, and we're going to have to cross our fingers and hope that it shakes out so that we don't end up with Real Madrid, Bayern Munich next round. That would be saddening, I think, for a lot of people. That's the game people want to see.
But looking at the Champions League field, you have the fringe English and German teams that are just not going to be there very long. In fact, most English teams could be out. Manchester United is going to lose to could very well just finish losing to Olympiacos unless they pull a rabbit out of their hat at Old Trafford. Chelsea could very well lose to Galatasaray because all Galatasaray needs is one big away goal to sweep that leg. Man City's already in a huge hole against Barcelona, and they got to go to Spain for that second leg. And who am I forgetting? Man City, Manchester United, Chelsea, and Arsenal. Just already a done deal against Bayern Munich. So you're going to see all the Champions League teams out. Atletico Madrid has the talent to make a run, and we think they're going to take down Milan, but neither of those teams is particularly talented. They're going to go as far as their draw allows them to go. Borussia Dortmund isn't the team they were last year. Barcelona is playing the way you remember them playing, except that they're just older, slightly over the hill team, and when they run into Real Madrid, the way Real Madrid is playing right now with Bale and Ronaldo and the clinic they're putting on, it's not going to be close. So again, this reminds me of the 2005 Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA, where you had the Miami Heat and the Detroit Pistons and just a bunch of terrible Eastern Conference teams. It's basically that, and yeah, you're right. Let's hope we get the matchup that we all want to see. But I'll tell you what's a lot more fun, Steven. I'll tell you what had me going.
I think
today.
I know where you're going.
I'll tell you what's in it. We keep saying this. It's a night at the Dollar Bar. You get off work. It's 5 o'clock. You go to the bar. It's dollar beer night. You get your tall boys, your $2 PBR tall boys. You get your cheese fries. You start playing darts. You start shooting some pool with your buddies. You're watching a game on television. It's the Europa League, and today, an unbelievable from noon to 4 Central. Just sit down in front of your computer and stream all of it. It was so much fun. I don't even know where to begin. I'll tell you where we're going to be. We're going to begin with my legitimately beloved Tottenham Hotspur, a team that I adopted over the last year. Down 1 goal going into their game at White Hart Lane, playing against a team from Ukraine that was incredibly game that I cannot pronounce. Steven, can you pronounce that Ukraine?
I just go with Dnipro. I don't even try on the second one. Dnipro.
Dnipro, yeah. I feel terrible about that. But basically, Dnipro takes an early second half lead. It's now 2-0 on the aggregate. Tottenham Hotspur just storms back. They get one from Eriksson in the 56 on just this gorgeous, brave, adventurous, bold set piece. The kind that I don't even know if you'd see in the Champions League because it was such a risk to take. And then Zozulia is his last name. He scored in the 48th for Dnipro. Uh, gets sent off for some foul play in the box. Although really, it was all about Vertonghen taking a huge dive.
Oh,
Red card changed the game.
it was horrible. I mean one of the better acting jobs you'll ever see, but the way it affected the game, I couldn't root for Tottenham after that. I was just like, here we go, Tottenham's going to pull this out, and it's just it
Yeah,
was a hose job.
it was a straight up hose job. Shades of the France Ukraine playoff game. Just one of those ill timed red cards. And yeah, I mean Vertonghen, to his credit, he acted, you know, like boy man, like Kevin Spacey in House of Cards, in the sense that he was just like a gross like over actor and writhing on the ground, and the ref had no choice but to pull that red card. But man, Zolzulia, when he got carded, the way he was flipping out, I tweeted that he acted like someone told him that his son had just drowned, like just freaking out. And then right after that wave of emotion, he just went right after Vertonghen. Had to be pulled away, so it was kind of a scrum there in the box, and of course as soon as that game changed, Manuel Adebayor, the man on fire for Tottenham Hotspur, scoring in the 65th and the 69th minute to put Tottenham Hotspur through to the next round. Game of the day, however, Frankfurt taking on Porto. Porto, a team that narrowly missed out on the Champions League. They got basically automatically dropped into the round of 32, this knockout round. They scored goals in the 58th, 71st, and 86th minute to erase a 3-0 deficit, win on the 5-5 aggregate because they had more away goals, and advance. I actually turned that game completely off. I looked at what's now left of the bracket inside Porto. What's Porto doing in the Sweet 16 all of a sudden? Now, folks, we got 16 clubs. Now, these clubs, again, the Europa League is where the good but not great teams from the different European leagues go play. And the next round of games, mark this on your calendar, March 13th and March 20th. They all happen on the same day. We have some unbelievably juicy matchups. Stephen, I'll let you take us through your tasting menu of the 4 or 5 just juiciest matchups.
Yeah, well, just to tell you how crazy the games were, I mean, the Porto game you just alluded to, the Porto Frankfurt game was the best of the day for the second round, but there were at least 3 games in that early slate where that game was. One between Porto and Frankfurt, the other between Swansea, my beloved Swans of the EPL, and Napoli, and the other third was between Ludogorets Razgrad, who was a small team out of Bulgaria I talked about a little bit last week, and Lazio of Italy. In a 20-minute span, we saw 9 goals and 9 different changes in the 3 teams advancing out of those games. So that's just to give you an idea of how open the play is here. This is definitely the tournament for the casual soccer fan, because the defensive play isn't as tight. The offensive play tends to be more individual. You're going to see a lot of just insane stuff. We've advanced to the Elite Eight, so to speak, if we're going to frame things in an American frame of mind here.
I don't know, Steven, I got to stop you. We've advanced to the Sweet. We went from the round of 32.
The Sweet 16, yes.
Now down to the Sweet 16. 11 countries represented in those 16 teams, so like a lot of really interesting new names. Certainly some familiar faces. Steven, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine, and thank you for clarifying that there are 8 matchups between 16 teams here. Like you said, 11 different countries represented here. Definitely has more of an NCAA tournament feel. You know, your Wichita States, your Gonzagas getting in here. Small, teams, countries whose leagues fly under the radar. So we're going to start at the top. The best matchup, Juventus and Fiorentina. Top 4 teams in Italy. I'm going to give the edge to Fiorentina. Juventus has seemed focused on winning a historic 3rd league championship in a row. They haven't performed well in this European tournament. Fiorentina is hot right now. They are one of the hottest teams in Italy, and I'm going to take Fiorentina there. The second game, the juicy game, Basel. If you'll remember, the Swiss club that beat Chelsea, I believe, twice. I believe they swept Chelsea in Champions League play, but they finished 3rd in the group behind Schalke. And Chelsea, they take on our boys Red Bull Salzburg, the Austrian champs. Look out. This is going to be a fun game. Now Basel lost one of their better players during the transfer market in Mohamed Salah, but just watch out. This is going to be, I've got it circled. This is your Wichita State playing Gonzaga last year in the second round, your 1 versus 9 game. This is what we're talking about, okay? This is going to be a good game to watch. Our third game is going to be Napoli playing Porto. And I think Napoli is going to probably have its way with Porto. They're a little more defensive, a little stouter, but they can also get up and down. Porto is just going to come at you. They're kind of like your 40 minutes of hell team. You talked about it last week. They're going to press, and if you do what you do well, you'll be fine. But if not, Porto can really put some goals on you. The fourth game is going to be, I'm totally blanking out on who it is. It's Tottenham playing
Benfica. The Portuguese club.
Yes.
Last year's Europa runner-up, they lost to Chelsea in the final, so Tottenham, Benfica. Benfica just consistently lights out. They're really comfortable in this tournament. Tottenham overachieving in terms of how they generally do in international tournaments, but peaking at the right time next month. Benfica, Tottenham, a delicious.
It's going to be a fun game to watch. I think I think I'm going to give Benfica the edge for now, but certainly those top 4 games are games you're going to want to watch. The rest of the setup, you've got Ludogorets Razgrad, that Bulgarian team who played a great game today to get by Lazio, playing Victoria Pilsen, the Czech League champions, who were in a group with Manchester City, and Bayern Munich. Certainly no slouch. They played Shakhtar Donetsk, who's in Manchester United's group, and got by them today. Probably going to go ahead and give Pilsen the edge there. Then you've got Real Betis and Sevilla, two second bottom half of the table Spanish La Liga clubs. I'll give Sevilla the edge there. You've got Lyon, French team, one of the hotter teams in the world right now, playing. Who's Lyon playing, Ramon? You recall?
Lyon, the Frenchmen are playing. Actually, they're the ones that are playing the Czech club. The Bulgarian club is playing Valencia from Spain. Lyon is playing
Pilsen.
Victoria Pilsen. You got a Dutch club and a Russian club.
AZ Alkmaar and Anji Mahakala. I take AZ. That's the club, of course, that Aaron Johansson, the U.S. international, who'll be playing in the Ukraine game this week. He plays for AZ. I like AZ to get by them. I like Valencia to get by Ludogorets Razgrad. And I like Lyon to get by Victoria Pilsen there. So,
it's just going to be a tremendously fun game because you got two Spanish clubs, you got two Italian clubs that know each other playing really well. You have that sort of fear of the unknown thing with it's going to be great. We could sit here and just sort of mumble about it for a long time, Stephen. We got a lot to get to. Point is, March 13th, March 20th, tune in, plan your afternoon around it, take a long lunch. You got to watch it. It's the best. Let's move on. Stephen, we talked about the Europa League. One story that kind of got buried with all the action is the draw for the next Euro, the Euro 2016, the championship. Some interesting wrinkles.
Yeah, it's so a couple things happening with Euro 2016. First of all, expanding to 24 teams. So there's 9 groups of 6 that will be competing. One of those teams in there, though, and this is where we're gonna kind of go off on a tangent here. One of those teams is Gibraltar. You've probably heard of the Rock of Gibraltar. You've probably thought it was really, fake, maybe fiction. I don't know. Well, it turns out it's real. It's just like this little limestone outcrop. It's like the tip of Florida. The tip of Florida. Think of that. But it's on mainland Spain. But it's been ruled by England since the early 1700s. And so it's a huge issue, though, in the political sphere in Spain. Gibraltar is culturally English. They speak English there. They're culturally English. They have the red English phone booths. They use the monetary pound there as opposed to like the euro or whatever Spain's monetary equivalent is. And so they were actually drawn into a group with Spain, and UEFA moved them out. to deal with to avoid the political intentions, political tensions. Excuse me, I cannot talk tonight. Even more interesting. So Gibraltar is finally recognized by UEFA as a full member. They've been a provisional member since 1997. Spain has openly campaigned against Gibraltar being a full UEFA member. Lots of interesting things going on there. That's all we're going to say about that for now, but it's going to open up. We want to peel back the onion a little bit. Spain, and we've touched on this a little bit before, is a complicated nation. They are a nation made up of 17 autonomous communities. And a lot of this plays out in the rivalries on the soccer field. And it's very interesting to see. When Spain won the World Cup, with a lot of the players that play for Barcelona, many of those players did not claim the title, the World Championship in soccer for Spain. They claimed it for Catalonia, a enclave in the far east of the Iberian Peninsula of Spain there that runs the ocean there, Barcelona being the biggest and most notable city of which. So playing into this, we've got the Castilians, the old central Spanish where Madrid is. You've got the Basques in the north of Spain that speak their own language, and Athletic Bilbao is one of those clubs in that region, and they only sign players that are of Basque nationality. So we've got a really complicated cultural identity here going on in Spain, and that plays into even as much as the Barcelona-Real Madrid rivalry, into even smaller rivalries such as the crosstown rivalry between Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid. That one's less cultural, but that gives you an idea of all of the stuff at play here in Spain. It would be like if Texas, if the United States soccer team was made up mostly of players from Texas and chose to wave the Texas flag should they win the World Cup versus the American flag, and some of the players from New York would obviously take offense to that, and et cetera, et cetera. But we're gonna. So we went back out. I want to zoom back in now on this Atletico Madrid Real Madrid rivalry, Ramon, and really break it down, because this is for first place in La Liga this week. It could make a one-horse race back into a three-horse race, but we've got more than meets the eye, Ramon.
Yeah, Stephen. Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid. One of the more compelling, fun rivalries. I don't know how much we've talked about them in the past, because actually we recorded a whole 15-minute segment on this rivalry, and then we accidentally deleted it with our technical issues. But basically, it's a hell of a rivalry. You got the team of the people, you got the team of the establishment, you got the team that has all the wealth and all the stars against the huge overachievers that have actually been kind of propelled by the greatness of Real to become major players on the international stage. They've won the Europa League a couple times this decade. Basically, they're going to play each other, and it's going to be awesome. And at this point, as overachieving and as good as Atletico is right now, Real Madrid is way, way, way better. They're the best team in the world. I don't think this is going to be much of a... all my excitement to talk about this has completely waned just because of how good Real Madrid looked this week. And the notion of calling it a rivalry has just kind of been bumming me out. And they got that Croatian dude that's just going to eat Mexico alive because of just how much he can create and how many chances he can create, and it's giving me nightmares. I don't know, man.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's Luka Modric is who Ramon is referring to, and it's just if you haven't had a chance to look up the Atletico Madrid Real Madrid rivalry, you should. Most of it, Atletico Madrid was one of the hottest teams in the world until they ran into the Real Madrid buzzsaw about 4 weeks ago, and it's been all downhill. They've lost 4 of their last 6, and Real Madrid has, and you'll be seeing this this morning as this podcast is going up online. Real Madrid has actually overtaken Bayern Munich as the hottest team in the world right now. So very interesting stuff at play both culturally and on the soccer field. Invite you to tune in Sunday morning for that one on BN Sport. Atletico Madrid hosting Real Madrid. But Ramon,
Yeah.
what we haven't done? We haven't touched on the World Cup moment.
All right, so it's time for the World Cup Minute, and we talked quite a bit about the stuff that's happening on the field, but how about off the field? Adidas is going to stop selling World Cup products that are using sex appeal. They had a shirt that said "Looking to score," and folks said, "Nope, that is in poor taste. Stop selling that, Adidas." And I think that's all I got, Steven. You got anything else for the World Cup? Man, we talked quite a bit about the rosters.
No, it's going to be the World Cup 10 seconds today, so we'll just leave it at that. That's all right, though. I mean, I think everybody's got their international flavor in for themselves, and I think now maybe we should just get into what we're watching this weekend. And Ramon, there's just a number of great games. I have a feeling we obviously touched on Atletico and Real Madrid. I have a feeling you've got a couple in the Liga MX you want to talk about, but for me, we've got Liverpool going to Southampton. Watch out, potential upset alert. It's Saturday morning. I'm telling you, if Liverpool's going to keep pace, this is going to be the real test. Can they win away from home in this final 3-month stretch here in the English Premier League? It starts here with St. Mary's. They need a win against a tough team to beat at home. This is a game you want to watch, and that's what I'll be doing.
Well, yeah, and Sunday for me, it's all about Sunday morning. I'm going to be watching. Liverpool's on upset alert, and I'm really hoping they can take an L because they have a 6-point lead over Tottenham in that 4-5 race for the final Champions League slot. So if it goes down the way you and I think it could possibly go down, and I think if Southampton can pull some kind of an upset there at St. Mary's, then all of a sudden Sunday morning this is just a homer pick. Tottenham Hotspur gets Cardiff City at home, an immense opportunity to gain some ground on Liverpool and pull within 3 points of fourth place. Certainly Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid is going to be tasty and muy delicioso. I think the game of the week, Saturday, March 1st at 6 Eastern, Cruz Azul and Toluca, playing at Estadio Azul. It should be just a great showcase for some fantastic talent. I'm going to be watching on Sunday. I'm going to be watching Pumas playing Pachuca at home there, so that's Sunday noon. So I'm doing Tottenham at 10, Pumas at noon. Those are my two favorite teams, and that's going to fill my Sunday morning. That's what we're watching. In addition to just getting jacked for some friendlies the next week, and I think that's what we're watching this week.
All right, now time, I think, Ramon, for our red cards of the week.
It's nasty as a rat bait from the back. It's wicked. It's malicious. It's verging on criminal. I mean, it's one of those that a red card is really not enough.
And I will start by red carding the absolute hell out of your favorite Tottenham Hotspur, Ramon, Jan Vertonghen, for his conduct today in sinking the Dnipro ship. I don't know if you've actually seen their crest. It's awesome. It's a ship. He sunk it. They're out. Tottenham's in. They play Benfica. They live to fight another day. Great gamesmanship, but he's an asshole.
Steven, I think for the first time, Jan Vertonghen, that's actually where I was going. The dude actually, he had an ugly foul in.
Let's double red card him.
That he committed himself at the beginning. Toward the end of the first leg there in Ukraine, and he's the reason why Tottenham had that 1-0 deficit to begin with, because it was a cheap foul that he really didn't have to make, and all of a sudden off the PK, Ukraine goes back to White Hart Lane with the 1-0 lead, and then today it's the kind of thing that just really kind of grosses you out when he sees acting that's so over the top and ridiculous, and you hate to see a game decided like that, although I think Tottenham was well on its way to tying it up either way. Let's double card him. Let's get him out of here.
All right, I like it.
Steven, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Let's get to some soccer. Let's get to some polls, and boy, we got a long way ahead of us. Good luck, man.
All right, yeah, I like it. We're going to end this on a historical milestone for us, Ramon. A double red card.